Hello and thanks for joining us on Encore. Coming up on today's show, bringing a picture book to life with his own eccentric brand of cinematography, Tim Burton's back with a new heroine, Miss Peregrine, and her home for peculiar children. He's the waif who asked for some more, the orphan who roamed the mean streets of 19th century London. Charles Dickens' creation takes to the stage here in Paris in a new production of Oliver Twist. And this is not an exhibition, or is it? The painter of the surreal, René Magritte, is celebrated at the Pompidou Centre here in Paris. He's the master of the macabre, famed for his phantasmagorical vision. Tim Burton is back with a new film that's storming the box office in the US. Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children stars actress Eva Green in the title role. Adapted from a best-selling young adult novel, Tim Burton has deployed his signature style on this latest film with a little help from the CGI department. Mark Thompson has more.
There's a new world coming.
Olive is lighter than air. She has to be careful not to float away.
Come meet the others.
She's the first of a group of extraordinary children Jacob meets at Miss Peregrine's house. Following his grandfather's advice, he ends up at an orphanage unlike any other. A home for those whose abilities and peculiarities mean they don't quite fit into everyday life. The film, an adaptation of a book by American author Ransom Riggs.
I assure you, we are coming.
Before I even read the book, I looked through it, and I liked it even before I read it, which is something that's unusual, because I like the way Ransom, the author, had constructed this around photographs. And I collect kind of photographs, and I'm very fascinated by when you look at a photograph and it sort of tells you a story.
Riggs originally intended Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children to be a picture book. Instead, he tied the narrative together from photos he'd collected over the years. The result? A bestseller, which sold over 3 million copies worldwide.
Ransom Riggs came up with something that is poetic and at the same time horrific. The characters in this book are fantastical and also historical because they're based on photos taken from the middle of the 20th century. And everyone is intrigued by this period of time around the Second World War.
Director Tim Burton, who also made films such as Beetlejuice and Alice in Wonderland, is used to entertaining and scaring his audience at the same time. The cast is littered with big names like Judi Dench, French actress Eva Green, and Samuel L. Jackson. A combination which is proving a hit with audiences. Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children topped the US box office in the first week after its release.
When you were born, it's time for you to learn what you can do.
Looks like the sort of spooky stuff that's perfect material for Tim Burton. Now, a new film out here in France is delving into the personal stories behind the headlines when it comes to recruiting young people for jihadist missions. Le Ciel attendra, or Heaven Will Wait, explores the inner lives of two French girls sucked into the online propaganda machine of the Islamic State group. It's a chilling look at the creep of extremism. Mariam Saab has this report.
A radical turn at 17. Two teenage girls fall down the rabbit hole of Islamic fundamentalism in the French drama Heaven Will Wait. There's Melanie, a model student with a gift for music. And Sonia, a dreamer living happily with her parents and a younger sister, until they tumble into the trappings of Islamic State group recruiters online.
Tu es pur. Ton cœur est pur. Tu n'es pas comme tous ceux qui t'entourent. Tu es spécial.
Moi, je pensais que c'était que des ados paumés.
I thought that those who were recruited were vulnerable teens, lost in angst, who don't do well in school, shut off from their families. It's incredible to realize how many different personality profiles get swept up in this.
Incroyable le nombre de profils différents à qui ça arrive.
Brainwashed from the heart to the head, Melanie is drawn down the path to extremism after building a relationship with a recruiter called Freedom Fighter via social media. For both girls, the journey into the online underworld of jihad has very real consequences.
These girls are looking for an ideal to hold on to, a model. And recruiters use that and offer answers, even if they're wrong.
Sonia is put under virtual house arrest after police foil her attempt to travel to Syria. In the throes of her newfound conviction, Melanie rejects her surroundings and embraces radical Islam. The dramatic shift sends their parents down the path to recover their lost daughters.
Witnessing your child fade away in front of you, a child that's present physically but mentally withdrawn, is the worst pain imaginable.
Moi, j'ai choisi l'islam à ton âge parce que justement, il n'y avait pas de clergé entre moi et Dieu, tu vois? Je m'en fous de vos histoires, vous pouvez me raconter ce que vous voulez. Ou c'est encore un truc pour m'enfoncer un peu plus.
In an effort to reprogram their daughter, Sonia's parents stage an intervention with a counsellor. Freeing vulnerable teens from a psychological hostage situation requires love and patience, according to this lawyer, experienced in dealing with cases like those explored in the film.
Mothers tell me about their children who've been drawn into this kind of indoctrination. They say their children are completely absorbed on all levels, in their mind, body and consciousness.
Girls are prime targets for recruiters, able to support their cause across all fronts, from the home to the battlefield, as a wife, mother and fighter.
He's the orphan who dared to ask for some more and charmed readers with his exploits in 19th century London. Oliver Twist has been a huge success on the page. Now he's headed to the stage. Charles Dickens' novel is the subject of a new show here in Paris, and in a city without an established musical theatre district like Broadway or the West End, it's a relatively new experience for a French audience. Claire William takes a closer look at the Salle Gaveau here in Paris.
How do you make a West End show set in Victorian London a hit with Parisians? The team behind Oliver Twist started by writing new songs in French. The plot is faithful to Charles Dickens' story of an orphan desperately looking for his family. Nicolas Moutet, Oliver, is only 16, but he's an experienced performer. 2 years ago, he was a semi-finalist in France's kids' version of The Voice.
I didn't expect, back then, during The Voice Kids, that I would be in a musical in Paris one day. And it just makes me believe that I can live my passion through my whole life. This can continue, whether the success or not, just knowing that I could be happy doing this my whole life. It's just amazing.
Instead of a theatre, the production team opted for a concert hall, normally used for chamber music and piano recitals. The Salle Gaveau near the Champs-Élysées has impressive acoustics, but it does not have standard rigs for lighting, and the orchestra has to sit in the audience. Props are tucked under these trapdoors because the backstage area is too small.
There are so few ways to get onto the stage, for example, so we've had to play with the Salle Gaveau. The actors often come on stage by walking through the audience, and I think that's interesting. It feels like London is here, as if the show has broken out of its frame. My ideas would never have come to me if I hadn't had to work in this venue.
Please, sir, I want some more.
The French version of Oliver is unlikely to resemble the classic 1968 musical film. The director did not watch it because he feared it would influence his creativity. The show runs until February, but if Parisians want some more, the Salle Gaveau will add extra dates.
Oliver Twist looks set to be a successful cross-channel export. Now, going beyond the figurative, the empirical and even the real, surrealism turned the art world on its head almost a century ago. One of its greatest exponents, René Magritte, is the subject of a new exhibition at Paris's Pompidou Centre. The Belgian painter is known for his philosophical approach to representation, questioning the link between words and images. This new show features more than 100 paintings, drawings and documents. Phoebe Lanza-Wood takes us round.
He's known for playing with images and translating philosophy into art. René Magritte is one of the most celebrated surrealist painters of all time. His works are as thought-provoking today as when they were painted in the 20th century. They ask questions about the things we take for granted, using juxtapositions that force the viewer to reconsider everyday objects.
I'm a painter. I can only show how things appear. What's really visible?
The most famous example is Magritte's iconic work, The Treachery of Images. Underneath a picture of a pipe are the words, "This is not a pipe," a stark reminder that a painted object, no matter how convincing, is not the real thing. A variation of sadness was painted 3 decades later in the 1950s, but is just as philosophical. It depicts a chicken looking at an egg in an egg cup, as if to question the fate of the chick. It's one of the many recurring themes in Magritte's repertoire. In his 1936 self-portrait Clairvoyance, a painter looks at an egg as a model, but draws a bird on the canvas. Apples, candles and bowler hats are just some of the other objects that feature heavily in his works.
He's someone who wanted his images to be accessible to everyone. That's why all the objects he chose were everyday items.
Magritte's use of everyday imagery has been cited as a key influence on pop art, though he himself rejected the connection.
Paris is waving goodbye to the fashion pack for another season as the great and the good of ready-to-wear pack up their spring-summer collections for 2017. And one of the highlights was Chanel, with cables, LEDs and even robots, the French labels embracing everything tech and digital for the season to come. We'll leave you with a preview of that. Remember to check out our website. You can also keep up with Encore on Twitter and Facebook. There's more news coming up on France 24 after this.
I do collections for today. I don't do collections for yesterday.
Picture perfect, so chic, in